All right, so let's talk about toxicity. So who here, all right, let me back up. Let me make a statement. All of us are toxic.
Yes.
We all are,
Yes.
all right? And it's one of those things where, unfortunately, it's unavoidable. I'll give you an example, right? So here's a typical scenario. We've got, and by the way, you can do this, what's this? You guys can scan that, and we'll talk about that in a second. So while I'm talking, you can just pull that up. It's the lifestyle risk assessment questionnaire that we use to help assess, to see how people are doing in areas of the 5 essentials. If you have any holes in your lifestyle, when it comes to nutrition, toxicity, sleep, anything at all that could be ruining your health, we do a questionnaire, and then we meet with you to discuss it and see, okay, these are some of the holes, and we make recommendations. So you guys can do that. So, got it? For everyone's sake? Worked? Okay, perfect. So I'm moving on. All right, so we're all toxic. So imagine this, okay? It's 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Your alarm goes off, right? And you get out of your bed. Your nice, comfortable bed. Who's with me? Problem is that nice, comfortable bed has flame retardants on it, right? And those flame retardants will off-gas formaldehyde. So while you're sleeping in your nice, comfortable bed for 6, 7, 8 hours, you're breathing in formaldehyde. That can now lead to things like lung cancer or nasal cancer or other types of cancers, digestive issues. You put your feet down on your carpet, let's say, if you don't have hardwood floors, and it might be synthetic. So now when you put your foot on that carpet, that's off-gassing even more chemicals that you've been breathing in all night. Maybe you've got a bottle of water on the table next to you, so you decide, okay, let me get up, take a sip of water. Came out of a plastic bottle, has phthalates in there. So phthalates, okay, endocrine disruptor, can mimic estrogen in your body. You get up, you go to the bathroom, maybe wash your face, right? You use water from the tap, you've got fluoride and chlorine, more carcinogens. You take the Listerine out, you gargle with the Listerine, right? Oh, wait. More chemicals in there. It doesn't have to be Listerine. I'm not vilifying Listerine. Some more chemicals in there. Right? You've got a ton of, like 12, probably half a dozen different chemicals that are used to help to flavor Listerine. You gargle with that. More toxicity. You grab your toothpaste, maybe some Colgate or Crest. Has more fluoride in there. Toxic. Oh, did I mention that the water has chlorine? Carcinogen, right? You take your toothpaste out, you got your fluoride, carcinogen, you put that on your toothbrush. Not to mention some of the other chemicals that are in there, and you brush your teeth with that. More chemicals. Then you take your medications. Well, we know medications, I get it, they serve some good, but they're toxic. Then you go to the bathroom and you pee it out, right? Eventually, and that goes into our water supply. And yes, they have found medications in the water supply. Oh, by the way, in your commode, you got your little air freshener in the commode, right? And you guys still do that? That deodorizer, that's more chemicals that you're breathing in. It smells good, but you're breathing that in. Then you take a shower. The biggest organ in your body is your skin. Chlorine, water. Fluoride in the water. So now it's all seeping into your pores. You guys with me? Yes. You come out of the shower, then you gotta put your makeup on, your cosmetics. Oh Lord. You got every which, you name it, chemical in there. Then you put your deodorant on. It has aluminum in there, antiperspirant, right? Blocks the pores. Can lead to things like breast cancer. You got aluminum in there, you got parabens, you got all these different chemicals in there going right into your bloodstream. Then you may put some cologne on or some perfume. There you go. A ton of other chemicals in there. You guys get the picture?
Yes.
You go downstairs and you make lunch. So you get your bread, right? Maybe get your turkey, your ham. May not be nitrite or nitrate free, right? They use those compounds to induce cancer in lab rats, by the way. Nitrates and nitrites. You make your sandwich. You take some mayo and you spread that on your sandwich. That's your soybean oil. Right? That's rancid. You put that on your sandwich. Then you wrap it in saran wrap. More chemicals. Right? And you haven't even left the house yet. We haven't even talked about the coffee that you might have made with the same water with chlorine in it. And those coffee beans, if they're not organic and not, properly sourced, then they're full of pesticides and herbicides. Just like that, and it's nice and hot, so it's going right into your blood system. You haven't even left your house yet, right? You leave your house, you're breathing in the air, polluted. You get to your office or school, you may have mold in the building, right? We just talked about that, Mike. You may have mold in the building. You got the same carpet in there, off-gassing all over the place. If you stepped into a brand new car, that new car smell? Off-gassing. You with me? You haven't gone through half your day. They say that we're exposed on a daily basis to 2.1 million different chemicals. And we'll talk about how that happens here in a second. According to the FDA, the average person uses 9 personal care products daily, containing 126 chemical ingredients. Think about that. And we even talk about the clothes, right? You put your clothes on, you pick them up from a dry cleaners, right? Dry cleaners, trichloroethylene and N-hexane. They cause cancer and memory loss. And if you're wearing clothes that are synthetic, that's even more chemistry, more chemicals. And they have flame retardants in there, affect your thyroid function. A lot of people eat cereal for breakfast, right? Don't raise your hands if that's you. What's in the cereal? High fructose corn syrup, right? Soy, modified corn, heavy metals, food additives. And if it happens to be Cheerios or Fruit Loops or colored ones, right? Please say hey, there's someone else that still eat that.
The rainbow cereals.
Right? You got the food dye in there. So here's the point. We're having a little bit of fun. But we never think about these things, but unfortunately, we live in a very toxic world. And so this is not a game of perfect. It's not about eliminating everything, because you can't. But where possible, you want to minimize. And so we're going to talk about some ways that you can really minimize toxicity in your life. So it's not just about detoxing your body, but how do I minimize it in my home? How can we minimize it in the things that we do on a daily basis, right? So that's what we want to talk about. Sounds good? Yes. All right. So what's our purpose? Our purpose is to save you from what I just went through. No, but really our biggest purpose is we want to be the standard for healthcare, right? Because we want you to be empowered, right, to live your best life. Right, as it says right there, to live a life of your full potential. And so when we are toxic, we can't live a life of full potential, because we know that toxins can lead to things like cancer. It can lead to things like thyroid problems. It can damage your DNA, it can damage your enzymes, it can damage your cells, okay? And so for us, it's all based on the 5 essentials. What are the 5 essentials? This is all about health and healing. And so we understand that there are 5 essential elements to be healthy. We understand that the nervous system, I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, that's what controls all healing in your body, and the other 4 support the healing in your body. We think it's important that you put the right foods into your body. We think it's important that you move on a daily basis on some form. We think it's important that you have a good mindset and that you create peace in your life and love, and not live a life full of stress and hate and anger and depression. We think it's important, and this is where we're going to talk about this one, to make sure that you keep your body pure and sufficient, right? Free of toxins. And so this is a framework in which we help people become healthy through the 5 essentials in Max Living. And so in this office, that's something that we pride ourselves on. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where they say that we consume about 2.1 million different chemicals that we're exposed to on a daily basis. So I'll give you an example. They say, and they being the CDC and the EPA, that there are about 70,000 different chemicals that are used commercially. There's about 30 plus chemicals that are added to our food supply. There are 10,000 plus chemicals in food processing, preservation, and storage. In our homes, they say that our homes are about 5 to 100 times more toxic than the air outside in our homes, right? So we're basically marinating ourselves in this toxic soup of toxins. And it's really interesting when you look up some of these toxins that I'm going to talk about, and especially if you go to like the CDC website, they'll always downplay the danger of these toxins, right? They'll always downplay the fact that, well, in lab animals, it's been shown to do this, but we think it's relatively safe in humans. The problem is that there's something called toxic accumulation, and there's something called the bucket theory of toxicity. So if you imagine that you have a bucket, so let's say you have this right here as a bucket, right, and you have toxins going into your body, what happens eventually is that bucket gets filled. And when that bucket gets filled, then it starts to spill over, and that bucket being your cell, okay? And when it starts to spill over, that's when you start having the symptoms. And so when you have all these different sources of toxicity building up in your cell, and your body's incapable of really detoxifying it, and then when we talk about weight loss, sometimes when people have a tough time losing weight, and it's because their body's holding on to the toxins. So in the bucket theory of toxicity is that when it starts to spill over, that's when you start having the symptoms. You know how you walk into a room and you smell a certain perfume or cologne, and then you start sneezing, right? But you never had that problem before, and all of a sudden you do. Right? How many people understand what I mean? Whereas like all of a sudden you become sensitive to things, and that's what happens. That's the bucket theory. So over the years it's been accumulating, and you haven't been able to get rid of the toxins in your body, and it accumulates to such a degree where all of a sudden you get sick. And the problem is that when it does spill, the symptoms can be drastic. You can go from feeling great one day, then all of a sudden having all of these different issues that you're unsure. Where is this all coming from? Fatigue, headaches, dizziness, fogginess, joint pain, so on and so forth. So we hear this from patients all the time. So this is why it's important to understand where all this is coming from. So these are some of the disorders that we see when you have toxicity over time, right? Cancer is a big one. That's on the top of the list. We know that toxins can lead to cancer, cardiovascular disease. One of the things that toxins can do in your body is cause inflammation. So once it causes that inflammation, it can lead to a lot of these disorders right here. A big one is developmental disorders in children. So mom or dad become toxic, right? And then that toxicity is passed on to the fetus. There was a study done one time, and they looked at the blood of I forget what the sample size was, and it's a video. I probably should play the video, but in the video, they set it up and they say we found, I think, 200 different chemicals in these 10 individuals. Right? Remember playing that video before with some of the talks, and they're actually unborn fetuses. Because sometimes people will ask, well, how is it that a child can be born and have cancer right away? That's how it's possible, because that toxicity is already in them early on, right? So, and then, so if it's not causing cancer, it can certainly cause developmental delays, immune system compromise, so on and so forth, right? Because toxins love to attack the nervous system. That's why one of the hallmarks of toxicity, you do see things like memory loss and brain fog, and low energy, fatigue, right? A lot of these are nerve function issues. So here are some of the signs. Weight gain. Why would you see weight gain? Because toxins are fat soluble. And so what that means is that's what they hide in fat. And so the innate intelligence of your body says, hey, if you've got toxins that we can't get rid of, then we need to keep them away from vital organs. So it'll store it in fat. So a lot of times when you're trying to lose the weight, you can't lose the weight because your body says, no, you need this fat because you're toxic. And so for a lot of people, and we've seen that with our metabolics program that I'll talk about here in a few minutes, that people who start truly detoxifying at the level of the cell. I'm not talking just taking a cleanse or juice cleanse. Those things are great, but that's not detoxification. A cleanse is not detox. A cleanse is just cleaning everything out. A detox is a specific system where it's, whatever the agent is, supplements, whatever it might be, are going in, they're binding, they're opening up a cell, they're binding to the toxins, and they're escorting the toxin out of the cell. It's a two-part system, right? A binding, and then so it's like a cell detox and a body detox. So there's a big difference, okay? And so when we see that when people start to do a very specific targeted program of that, people who've been working out, eating right, doing the advanced plan, and then those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you'll learn about that, and couldn't lose weight, started losing weight. Because the toxins are gone, and so the innate intelligence of the body says there's no need to have this fat anymore, right? So fatigue, skin problems, muscle pain, spasms, constipation, big one. right? Damaging the lining of the gut. Insomnia, headaches. Headaches and migraines are pretty big too. Mood swings. Mood swings, pretty big, right? Cancer. Unfortunately, a lot of people believe, we've been taught that, if you have cancer, in all likelihood is what? Because of what? Because your family, because of genetics. But the problem is the research doesn't bear that to be true, right? The research shows that 95% of the times when there is something like cancer, and quite frankly, any of the degenerative diseases that we have in our modern society today, right? Because these are all modern illnesses, okay? 95% of those, or times when you have them, are based on lifestyle. It's really only about 3 to 5% of the times is it truly genetic, right? Meaning, and genetic, and people have to understand what genetic means. When someone comes in and says to us, oh, they said it's genetic. Family history doesn't mean that it's genetic, right? If there's a family history of not exercising and eating poorly, guess what you're gonna get? You're gonna get what your mom and dad had, and they're gonna get what their mom and dad had. Does that make sense? So unless you can identify there's a gene that's passed down, then it's not truly genetic. It could be epigenetic, which is a whole different story, but it doesn't mean it's genetic, right? And so at the end of the day, we know that most of these things you can control. And that's good news, that you can control it. You can make healthy choices, right? You guys with me?
Yes.
All right, so it's not your genes. And we just talked about toxins being fat soluble. So the dose makes the poison. Here's the point of this. The more toxicity you take in, the more damage you do. So like I said, you may not be able to eliminate it, but certainly you can minimize it. So you want to limit your exposure so you don't have the damage. So let's go through a few toxins right here. So one of the top ones are phthalates, okay? And phthalates, they're used it's a solvent, so it's used in the food industry. It's used heavily in cosmetics. It's also used a lot in plastic to make them more durable. You find them in vinyl flooring, soaps, shampoos, hairsprays, dust, right? It affects kids a lot. And so there was a study that was done, and they looked at 2,636 individuals, right, from 6 years old and older. And they found that they had 13 phthalate metabolites in their urine, even at 6 years old. So these things are carcinogen, known carcinogens, phthalates. I know the list isn't up there, but just kind of bear with me. That's number one, okay? Phthalates are found higher in adult women than men. Why do you think? Cosmetics, right? Because you find them heavily in cosmetics and hair products and so on and so forth, right? So that's number one. It's found very high in non-Hispanic blacks versus Hispanic blacks. It affects the reproductive system. So think about things like fibroids. Think about infertility. And if you look at the graph over the last 20, 30, 40 years, you'll see that infertility rates have actually gone up, right? So there's a direct correlation there with toxicity. Are there other factors? Absolutely. It's used as a solvent in cosmetics. It's been known to cause liver damage, kidney damage, lung, affect IQs, and ADHD, cause ADHD. Guess where else you can find phthalates? Anything that there's a plastic. So for example, IV bags, right? Medical tubing. All right, there was a study that was done by Harvard, and they found high levels of phthalates in sick infants in neonatal intensive care. So think about that. Another one is BPA, right? Bisphenol A, and then you find that a lot in plastics. You know your water bottles, right, that you buy? Yeah, you find them in that. And so those are endocrine disruptors. You find them in hard plastics that cause infertility. You find them in baby bottles. Dental fillings. Think about that. Sports equipment. Epoxy resins. So they also use to coat the inside of food packaging and drink cans. So if you buy, well, none of you guys eat McDonald's or Burger King, I'm sure. But when you open up the package, you see that glossy, shiny thing in there? Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about? Or the wrapper, the paper. Don't act like you guys never had Big Macs or Burger Kings. Right, you know the paper that they wrap it in? Yeah, that's got BPA in it. So imagine the food is hot, it's wrapped in that thing, and then some people, what do? If you bought it and you took it home, but it's not as hot as when you bought it, right, with the plastic on it, you see? And so that's sinking into the food, and that's going into you, okay? So that's BPA. And then you have a whole group called volatile organic compounds. That's your toluene, benzene, acetone, formaldehyde, xylene. You find them in paint, carpet, upholstery, air fresheners, cosmetics, fuel, dry cleaners, causes breathing issues in addition to cancer. There's one that I've never heard of before until we started doing our testing, and it's called MTBE, methyl tert butyl ether. And it's an additive that you find in unleaded gasoline, and they've been doing that since the 1980s. And so the whole purpose of it is to increase the octane and oxygen levels in the gasoline to make it more high performance. And it helps to reduce pollution emissions. The problem is that it's a carcinogen. And so we've been doing lots of testing in metabolics, and pretty much, Emily, would you say every single person tested high in that?
Yeah, maybe one.
Now here's what I found out. It's banned, but not in all states. So it is possible, because we would tell people like it's banned, but it is banned in some states and not all states. Now, so that means like when you pump your gas, you're breathing it in, okay? If you live close to a gas station or a gas refinery, it can seep into the water, right? It's in the atmosphere, so the easiest way for it to get into your body is to breathe it in. The second easiest way is in the water that we drink, okay? So that's another toxin. Then you have styrene. You find that in plastic, right? So you think about your coffee cups, the plastic lid when you buy your Starbucks. That's one place that you can get styrenes, rubber, resins. It causes headaches, fatigue, dizziness, confusion, drowsiness, malaise, difficulty concentrating, and the feeling of intoxication. So you feel drowsy all the time. So again, imagine stacking all of these different chemicals on top of each other, being exposed throughout a day. And then you have microtoxins. You find those in certain bacteria. Okay, so those two can cause problems. Then you have heavy metals, right? Like your copper, your zinc, your cobalt. They seep into the atmosphere, and they're going to come from production, right? So with all the industries that we have, they use a lot of heavy metals. It seeps into your water, so you're drinking that too. And I'm kind of stacking this, but I don't think that we really understand how bad the situation is, but how much is being downplayed. You see, and then you have endotoxins, and you find those in bacteria. Then you have the pesticides. So you've got your insecticides, you've got the herbicides, you've got the rodenticides, you've got the fungicides, right? So when you spray for bugs, when you spray your grass, all that stuff, and it's been documented that people that work with that stuff, they have a higher rate of cancer. So the guys from like True Green that come and spray your stuff. I mean, if these guys aren't wearing masks, or some of these guys that do it in shorts, and that stuff gets on your skin, and you do that, okay, maybe once or twice, but when you're doing that, 5 days a week, you've been doing it for years, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia, those are some of the things that can happen as a result of that, right? So is this making sense, right? And then you have the PTFE, the polytetrafluoroethylene, aka Teflon. Right? So dental floss. I mean, I used to think about the non-stick pans that we use in my house growing up. And we thought that was the greatest thing, right? You make the perfect eggs. My eggs never stick. Right? Well, there's a reason why. But then think about that dental floss. Right? That's what makes it nice and smooth. Okay, so we have some alternatives for you guys. There's some lateral moves that we can make to make this so much easier. We call this spring cleaning. And so where are some of these things found? Okay, food, water, environment, cosmetic cleaners. Okay, so we just covered that. So now, let's talk about cleaners briefly. So in cleaners, you've got your dry cleaning solvents. There's one called perchloroethylene. Okay, so you find that in a lot of cleaning supplies. Formaldehyde is really big because you find it in, we mentioned some of the things that you found in there earlier, but you also find it in soaps and lotions and sunscreens. And even in food as a preservative, you'll find small amounts of formaldehyde. but you definitely find it in cleaners. And also think about like on your dishwasher. You know, when you open up your dishwasher, when it's done, that steam, right? That steam, when it hits you, that's toxic. And then we never think about this, but what about the dishwashing soap that we use, right? And that's all over your hands. What about the detergent that we wash our clothes in? See, and we put those clothes and we wear those clothes. So there's so many. What about the deodorizers for your home? What about the cleaning for your floor? All those different products, they accumulate over time. So cleaners are probably one of the biggest culprits when it comes to toxicity in your home, right? Because we have this thing about making things not just clean, but smell clean. Well, that smell is artificial. That smell is toxicity when you want it to smell clean. Especially right now, right? We're gonna do spring cleaning. So you want everything fresh. You know the commercials you see on TV? Fresh. Every time, now that I know what I know, whenever I see those commercials and I see people going, all I'm thinking is toxic, right? Toxic, right? So those are different things that you're going to see. We'll talk about some lateral moves in there. Then there's disinfectants, fragrance, colors. Same thing with the disinfectants. You know, when you use a disinfectant to kill, you know, that surface. And the last 2 years, right, have we not become obsessed with disinfectants? Some of us, right? Like everything. I have one patient, she can't help herself. Her and I, we laugh about it. She's not here, so I can talk about it. But I laugh because she's so incessant about like cleaning the table. Like she cleans parts that she won't even touch. All right, she cleans it before she gets on, she cleans it afterwards. And here's the problem when you do this disinfectant like that. And it's the same thing with the hand sanitizers. You're actually destroying your normal immune system. You really are. You're stripping your skin of the normal healthy bacteria that are actually there to protect you from the bad bacteria is what happens. So when you do that, you know, there's the, I forget the name of this theory, the exposure theory, I think is what it's called. But they talk a lot about, you know, kids. Yeah, maybe this was some of you, but you know when you had your kids and you'd walk behind them and clean everything? Like, don't touch that, clean this, right? Right? Don't play in the dirt. Do you realize that those kids typically are sicker? Right? But, okay, I think we're all old enough. You guys played outside in the dirt.
Oh, yeah, barefoot.
Right?
Drink out of the...
Guess what? That was part of building your immune system. So when we talk about disinfectants, not only is the toxic chemicals a problem, but you're actually weakening your immune system. And you're weakening your children's immune system even before they even have a chance to become robust. Okay? So those are some of the things that we saw. And so we have some different action steps here. So, giving you all the bad news, go ahead.
Are the disinfectants and antibacterial the same thing?
They can be, but not necessarily. Right? The disinfectants are going to kill the bacteria. Normally they will. Right? But the antibacterial hand soap, that's not good either. I mean, that's terrible. Okay? So there's different cleaners. So for example, I mean, we brought a few samples. So we rated our houses. Right? I think most of these are Dr. Kevin's and Emily's. Did you bring anything here, Kira? It wasn't meant to be a...
I'm watching.
I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus. It was a legitimate question, but you laughed. It betrayed you.
She doesn't use anything toxic.
No, come on, look at her. 7th generation. You guys have heard of this, right? So this is a very popular brand. If you go onto ewgwebsite.org, you will actually see so what you can do is you can put products that you normally buy. Try this. Cosmetics, cleaning supplies, if you're unsure. First of all, read the label if you're unsure. But if you just plug your products in there, they'll tell you what's in it, what's dangerous. But they also have healthier alternatives on there that you can see. So 7th generation is real good. They have so many different products. They've got dishwashing detergents. This is a glass cleaner that you can use. They have detergents for your clothes. You name it, they have it. Okay? So that's one of them. Any other cleaning supplies up here, guys?
Yeah, the doTERRA spray bottle.
doTERRA. Okay, so you know a lot about this. You can tell them.
Yeah, I think it's just essential oils and water. My mom gave it to me. But that's like all we use at home.
Do you know what we use to clean and to mop the floor with? Vinegar and water. Thank you. So we all, some preaching to the choir. Nice and simple, right? That's it. Nothing toxic. So there's a good example. So what else do we have on here? Any other cleaners? Oh, in terms of wipes. So if you do need to use wipes, you've seen this around the office. Again, 7th generation disinfectant wipes. Okay? So it's got thymol, and it's got mainly essential oils. Right? So if you want to clean, just buy these. What shouldn't you buy? Clorox, right? Don't buy the Clorox. What do you have here? What's this?
That's
Another brand.
Yeah.
Okay, baby. Okay, so this is for kids. For
Yeah,
baby?
we use those here too.
Okay, there you go. So here's another brand for you. So again, if you go to places like Whole Foods, I like to go to Nature's Corner. You guys know Nature's Corner, right? They're local. I like to support Doug or Sprouts or any of those stores, and you go there. They have an amazing supply. You can anything you need, you can get there for sure. Okay, so I think that's it for this. Oh, when we have your hand soap,
Yeah.
and you'll see this in our bathrooms. So you will never. Okay, if you see anything in our bathrooms, let me just say this, which you'll never. But if you see anything in here that is toxic, you let us know. If it's in there, it's because we just didn't know, right? So we're committed to that standard. So you just rest assured that when you come in here, we're not using anything toxic. Okay, so even when you wash your hands in the bathroom. Personal items. So this is stuff that I like. Right, so, okay, so here's the deal. When you use a deodorant, sometimes you have to try them out. Okay? Because deodorants don't have the aluminum, like the healthy ones. And the aluminum is what actually helps the antiperspirants. Right, so that you don't perspire. So when I first started using, the good stuff, I had to experiment a little bit. Because how many people know that sometimes it can fail you? You guys know what I'm talking about? Right? Right? And so this is where self-awareness comes in. Because sometimes, so I'll tell you a joke. I had this one patient. She was like a mom to me, right? She's really like an older sister. She was older than my mom. But you know how you have those people that are just straight shooters? So I adjusted her one day. This is years ago, and she walks out with me, and she's like, "Hey, Dr. White, did you use deodorant today?" I'm like, "Why?" So she went, and she did this gesture, and I was grateful. She was telling me, "Hey, listen, you got some BO today." So I had to go, and I was grateful for that. But the point being is that I had to go through a few of them, and I love Everyman Jack. This one seems to work. No one has called me out since that day. And so some of you, I get very close up on you to adjust. So if I smell, let me know. All right? But this works very well. I also use the body wash.
Where do you find that?
So you can see a mic.
Target sells Target has it.
Yeah, okay. I personally go to Nature's Corner to get it, and Sprouts. Right? But
name again?
Everyman Jack. So I use this. I use the body wash. I don't need shampoo for obvious reasons, right? But they do have a shampoo. They've got a few other products too. They've got like shaving gel, shaving cream. Okay, so you can use that. So we were laughing earlier. There's a company called Lush, and Lush is all organic, no toxics, essential oils. And so they have body sprays, and I had one that I used to buy. I liked the smell. It wasn't because of the name, but it was called Sex Bomb. And so that's what, I thought that was funnier than the response that I just got. Diana, you laughing? Yeah, okay. So I went back, and so we were in Vegas recently, and I saw a store. And it's funny because I went to the girl there. I said, hey, there's a body spray that I like, and but I don't remember the name of it. And I saw Sex Bomb, but I think I shut it out. And in the voice in my head says, surely it wasn't Sex Bomb, because I wouldn't buy something called Sex Bomb. And then today she reminded me, no, it was Sex Bomb. But this one here is Shade. And again, it's essential oils. And so I don't use colognes anymore. I stopped using, actually the reason why I stopped using colognes is because it got stolen. I went to a Crunch Fitness one time, and someone broke into the locker and stole 2 bottles of cologne, and they were kind of pricey. I said, forget about it. But then I learned how toxic they were, and I never bought them again. But if you do want something, this company is really good. Lush. There's another company called Puff Cuff, and I use some of their beard products. right? It's actually someone local, and she's actually a patient in the office, but I use this, it's called body butter, but like butter, not butter. But it has like coconut oil, shea butter in there. And so the point I'm trying to make is that there's so many different alternatives out there. You don't have to use the toxic stuff. You just have to know where to look, okay?
So we didn't talk about the female stuff since there's women in here.
Well, that's next,
Okay.
right? That would be this slide. So you can talk about that if you wish,
I'll be free.
because I'll be honest with you, I can't talk about cosmetics. So Emily can.
We're really glad about that too.
Well, before cosmetics, quickly, I like the Everyman Jack stuff, but I think it smells a little manly, and I don't really want it to smell manly. So, like for deodorants, I actually have two. Talking about like going through different deodorants, I like to cycle because keep your body on its toes. This La Vanilla you get at Target, Sephora. I really like it. And then there's also, this is really interesting. This is like a crystal. I got it from Whole Foods. They also have it on Amazon. And you just have to have your skin be like slightly damp. So like right when I get out of the shower, sometimes I'll do it. But it's like literally like a crystal. It's like a rock. And so it just, I don't know how it does it, but somehow it's potassium, alum, salt minerals that help your skin. It just helps prevent that bacteria that causes stink. What's it called again? High Crystal Deodorant Stick. The other one is La Vanilla. There's a bunch of different scents. La Vanilla. Like L-A Vanilla with one L. And then for skincare, I use Beauty Counter. There's also Crunchy, which is awesome. But it's very clean. Like if you search like on EWG, they have like awesome scores, all of that. And then for cosmetics, I recently just got this Honest Beauty. You can get it at Target and works well for me.
Any questions so far?
Yeah, any questions?
No, all makes sense. We didn't want to go too much into the weeds, right? Just you get the gist of it. But Dr. Kevin is going to talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
First, I love that you guys are here on a Monday night learning about this stuff. It shows me that health is so important to you, right? So the next couple of slides, I'm going to give you guys some action steps, so make sure you guys pay attention and take good notes, all right? So Dr. White already touched on this before, but polytetrafluoroethylene. Again, this is what makes your pots and pans non-stick, okay? Anytime there's non-stick, you know that it's unnatural to do so. So whenever you have a lot of this in your body, excuse me, it can cause things like fever, chest tightness, shortness of breath, headaches, and coughs and chills. Again, this is not just in Teflon or non-stick cookware, but it's also in your disposable masks. So due to various reasons, some of you guys might have to wear this in your life. So if you have to, don't use any of the disposable masks, and if you do, use it once and throw it away. You see a lot of people in the rearview mirrors where you have that's like a week old, all played out and everything. The more you wear this, right, the more it wears out. You're literally breathing that chemical in. Just because you don't see it or feel it right away, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? So here's some action steps to switch out your cookware. The best thing to get is stainless steel, cast iron, or some ceramic cookware. Now, I know there's a lot of cookware that's coming out now that has a ceramic coating and another coating that makes it non-stick. I would just stay away from those. So the bad thing about ceramic is it just takes a long time to heat up. So again, stick to stainless steel. If you invest into a good set, it will last for the rest of your life. Microplastics. So these are just exactly what it sounds like. They're little plastic particles they were surrounded by. So there's an interesting study done that took water samples from all over the world for a long period of time. So after that study, it showed that 94.4% of all of our tap water sources has some type of plastic in them. Conversely, comparing it to India had 82.4%, and in Europe there was 72%. So all over the world, by far in the United States, our water is more contaminated than anywhere else. And it is, on average, listen to this, we're exposed to about 100,000 microplastic specks are ingested into our body on a daily basis. In worst cases, an average person may ingest as much plastic that's equal to about 1 credit card worth. Isn't that crazy? In a year, you ingest so much microplastic that you can make a credit card out of it. So I want to challenge you guys when you get home today, just throughout the course of the week, just look around in all the plastics that are in your life. Not just the bags, not just the sandwich bags, but the things that you cook with, right? The packaging that comes into your Amazon box, right? Just look around at all the plastics and you'll realize that you're surrounded by that stuff. You're literally marinating in it. So what are some of the solutions? Again, avoid using things like plastic wraps and containers. And I think the best thing that you can do is replacing it with wood or glass. So what is that company called that we got?
Pyrex?
Pyrex. Yeah, Pyrex has good ones. You can get a whole set pretty affordably, and it comes in glass containers like this, and it does have a plastic top to many of them, but just don't use anything like heat or microwave with them just to minimize the microplastics in your life. And another thing is try to avoid using those plastic bags and use your own reusable bags at the grocery store. Make sense? Next is air quality. This is huge. Again, Dr. White talked about this before. So the EPA found that inside air is about 5 to 100 times more toxic than outside air. And the average American spends about 90% of our life indoors, right? We're either at home or we're either at work, right? And whenever we're inside our house, we're exposed to multiple different chemicals, one of them being radon. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of radon before, R-A-D-O-N. These are the gases that are being released from the soil and the bedrock underneath your house. Now you can't get away from these, but however, radon is the #1 cause for lung cancer for non-smokers. There's about 21,000 cases per year. So again, you can't just move your house and get away from these. I'll show you some solutions in a minute. And another thing that you need to consider is things like paint. If you're a smoker, smoke. And building materials and mold. Mold toxicity is one of those things that you don't feel it or see it necessarily until you get severely sick and your family's sick. Does that make sense? So here's some solution for you guys. Again, invest into an air filter. There are a lot of them out there. So I actually brought one from home, and this is one that we actually have in our bedroom. We have a small one. So this, Levoit is a brand, Levoit. So you can actually get this from Amazon. And even something small like this can actually purify a room like this every hour. You get a fresh air because of this. And we actually bought this a couple weeks ago, and I want to show you guys what the filter looks like. So can you guys see all the dust and fuzz that's attached to this already? And we just bought this. Yes, granted, we do have a cat and a dog at home, but if we didn't have this, imagine all the dust and the fur that we would have inhaled in the middle of the night, right?
That's just from our bedroom.
And that's just from our
We don't
bedroom,
want
yeah.
our house.
And we actually have a bigger one downstairs where it purifies the rest of our house. So again, air purifiers are one of those things that may cost a couple $100 to a couple $1,000, depending on your budget. But if you guys are note takers, there's actually 2 brands that are most popular. One is IntelliPure, like intelligent, but IntelliPure. And the second one is IQ Air. IQ Air. Now, if you cannot invest into a good quality air filter, you need to think about ventilating your house often. Again, inside is so much more toxic than outside, and again, it's getting beautiful. I know there's pollen out there, right? I'm scratching my eyes. But ventilate your air, keep the windows open, and let the air cycle naturally. And another thing is, who here likes houseplants? Oh, great, most of us here. So houseplants actually remove the pollution naturally. So here's 4 plants. Again, I'm gonna butcher these. But first one is spider plant, jade plant. Those have been shown to remove pollutions more effectively than others. And Emily, you might have to help me out. Bromeliad,
Bromeliad.
That's BROMELIAD. And Dracaena, DRACAENA. So those 4 plants I've shown to actually remove. What's that?
I said, is that actually the name of that plant?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is. And I'm not really sure what it looks like, but that's what the article said.
It's
Again,
like that one. It looks kind of like the yucca tree. That we
she's
have.
the green thumb in the household. So again, those 4
She
plants.
creates life, you kill it.
Exactly. Yeah, I just watch it. I just let it happen. And water. And it's not the water that we ingest, it's the water that we're exposed to. So it's shown that about 84,000 chemicals are found in our water supply. These are things like pesticides, chlorine, volatile organic compounds, which Dr. White talked about. These are things like in your bug spray, right? Paint thinners, right? And again, it's not just the water that you drink, but we do shower, right? And there was a very interesting study done. On average, we're exposed to about 25 gallons of water when we shower. And 75% of that water is brushed off. Your skin doesn't absorb it. But what about the other 25%? So if you take a shower for 15 minutes, it's the same thing as drinking 8 glasses of that contaminated water, right? Just because you don't see it or feel it doesn't mean it's not happening, right? Your skin is very porous. So you're ingesting and that's getting into your system, and you're forgetting about all the hot steam that you're inhaling, right? So here's the solution. Water filters. So there are small water filters that you can use just like the Berkey that we have in the other room, or you can go into a full house water filtration system. So again, this is one of those action steps that could cost you a couple $100 or a couple thousands of dollars, right? So the gold standard would be getting a whole filtration system for your house. So whenever you use the tap water, whenever you shower, it's pure filtered water, right? Again, if you guys are note takers, the most popular brand that I've seen that has been reliable is Aquasana. Aquasana. It's one of the top brands. Now, if you're looking for water filters, what are those filters that everyone uses? What are the name of that
Brita.
company? Brita, yeah. Brita water doesn't really do much. And if you actually use Brita filters and you pour the water in, if you really look closely at it, there's a lot of air gas between the filter and the plastic itself. And you can see the water actually filtering through or go running off the side. So what we personally use is a filter called Berkey, BERCEY.
K-E-C-K-E-Y.
K-E-Y.
I don't know. It's on that thing over there.
BERKEY.
It's the one that you guys use when you come in here.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what you call a survival grade filtration system. It's called carbon filters. So you put mud water or any flooded water into the top and it will come out as pure water. And you can actually add a chlorine filter to it, so it's filtering even more stuff.
Chlorine
So,
filter.
what did I say?
The black ones have the chlorine already that'll
Yeah.
filter it out, and the bottom ones we added fluoride filters.
Fluoride
See the fluoride
filters,
out.
yeah. See, I know your mom.
What would you do without me?
I know, nothing. I couldn't do anything.
We should have her do the whole talk.
Exactly. So yeah, again, we use that filtration system in our house to cook with, right? Just because you're drinking that clean water doesn't mean that you're cooking with it and boiling it. Does that make sense? So we use that water we do our best to use it for everything. But the next step up will be getting a whole house filtration system. Next, let's talk about toxins in our food. Again, Dr. White covered a lot of this, but what I want to talk to you guys about is there's actually a job called food scientists. So these are the people that spend every single minute of their work life trying to figure out how to make food more addictive. And you guys can actually Google this. They use any type of chemical, whatever it takes, to make you more addicted to food, right? This is why McDonald's have a different Coke blend, so it tastes differently. This is why McDonald's fries are so addicting, because they put all the chemical in it to keep you coming back. They use a different blend of chemicals, salt, sugars, and oils to make sure that there's a big dopamine spike, so you're addicted to that food. Now, these are the common things that you should look out for when you're consuming food. So monosodium glutamate is found a lot in Chinese food to enhance the flavors, and it's been shown to actually damage the nerves and cause heart issues. Second thing is aspartame. Who has heard about aspartame before? Good, most of us. Aspartame is commonly found in diet foods, okay? So this is highly carcinogenic, causing cancer. It can cause things like headaches and heart disease. So I would much, we don't condone sugar or soda, right? But I would much rather you actually drink a full Coke, regular original Coke, and containing that sugar, instead of you getting Coke Zero or Diet Coke and actually drinking aspartame. It actually causes more inflammation and more harm to your body. Next is nitrates. Again, these are in processed meats. Is linked to cancer and food coloring. These are linked to things like hyperactivity in children. These are linked to things like cancer, heart disease, digestive issues, especially blue color and red colors. Okay. And actually, if you look at food like conventional salmon, they actually put dye into the meat to make it look more desirable. So this is why it looks so orange, right? It looks so vibrant. If you take that coloring away, it will actually look more gray and dull. You guys can actually Google this before and after food dye.
Have you guys ever had like true Alaskan salmon, sockeye, like straight from Alaska? Have you seen the difference in the color? Like my brother-in-law went fishing one time and he brought one back, and I'd never seen it. I was amazed. Like it didn't even look normal to me. It was bright, like red almost. There's such a difference. So even as they put the dye, like there's a big difference.
Absolutely. And if you like to eat sushi, right? If you get that salmon fillet, it's nice and orange and white in between. Most of it is all dye. Most of it is all dye. Okay. Next, refined oils.
Thanks, Dr. Kevin.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Now, from what I have researched and learned, there are some foods that naturally contain nitrates or nitrites that is not added. Am I correct with that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
She was, no.
Not the added
Actually,
stuff. But
I
there are
actually didn't know that. Oh, I don't know. I can't think of what foods do contain nitrates and nitrates.
I think it was like kraut.
Well, you find some of it in the soil naturally.
Okay, all right.
So that's where it comes from, right? So some, but the problem it's not coming naturally from the soil. It's being added to these foods as preservatives,
Right.
right? And so it's just like heavy metals. Like heavy metals are in the soil. But when you start adding them to our production process, at those concentrations, they're toxic to us.
Alright, moving on. So refined oils. These are things like found in pretzels, in fried foods. Again, linked to heart disease, cancer. Are you guys seeing a theme here, right? Cancer, cancer, cancer. All those rates are going up over the last decade or two, right? I wonder why. Because all this stuff is being injected into our food. Again, genetically modified food. Anytime you see that, we know that there's a lot of chemical being used on the food in the farming process and in the storage process. So what's the solution? Again, is avoid food by man and buy food by God. Right? That's a law that you can trust for the rest of your life. What do I mean by food by man? If it's packaged nicely, it's food by man. If it went through a lab, it's food by man. Food by God is getting food that is as close to the source as possible. Least hands touch that food, the better. Is that making sense? If it has an ingredient list, it's not food by God. Apple is an apple, right? Meat is meat. Again, buying organic is ideal, but understand that sometimes it's not realistic. Does that make sense? This is why we have this list right here, the Dirty Dozen. People ask us all the time, what do we need to get organic? This is a good picture to take, or this is good to write on your notes, is any food on this list, you must buy organic, and here's why. Oftentimes, food from this list, you eat it whole, right? And oftentimes, food from this list has a very thin skin on it, so any kind of spray or chemical that's on the food during the farming process or the storage process is being directly injected into what you're consuming. And there's another list called the Clean 15. Now the Clean 15, you guys can actually Google. We don't have that here today, but these are the foods that if you don't necessarily have to buy organic, but it's still preferred. don't think of buying organic as all or nothing. People say, well, I can't buy this organic, so I'm just gonna buy everything conventional. However, little bit is better than nothing, okay? Just see
The
what,
problem with organic though is that they can say it's organic if they have a certain amount of pesticides that they use.
Yeah. That line
There's
is getting-
degrees of
Yeah.
organic, and the labeling is very misleading and deceiving.
absolutely, and that line's getting thinner and thinner, right? It's getting very gray. This is why whenever you support local farms, you know where the food is coming from, the better. Okay, everybody got this?
Dr. Choi,
Yes, ma'am.
also the ewg.org, they do have where you can subscribe, send them give them your email, and they'll send you the list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15.
Oh, okay, fantastic. You guys all hear that? Okay, good. So I'm gonna skip this slide for now. Right now, I'm gonna come back to it. Toxic bioaccumulation. So this is just simply a phenomenon where you go higher on the food chart or the food chain, the more toxic that animal or the organism gets. Okay. So here's an example. So think about a small fish, a little minnow in the water. The only toxic that it is exposed to is the water that's around it, right? So whenever a bigger fish comes in and eats that small fish, that bigger fish is not simply exposed to that toxins in the environment, but it's exposed to that little fish that was toxic also. If you repeat this process, the higher you get in the food chain, the more toxic it gets. So this applies especially to things like fish. So whenever you are consuming fish or buying fish, make sure it is a wild caught, cold water.
Versus
Right. Exactly, versus farm raised, exactly. And again, that line is getting thinner and thinner, but even wild caught in cold water, they're still toxic too. Again, this is the better form. Makes sense? And when it comes to smaller fish, again, things like salmon is very nutritious for you. Again, don't eat it every single day, limit it. It's still healthy, but it can still have toxins in it. Now let's go back to this slide right here. Mineral depleted soil. So we live in an age where food is massively produced. We live in a very aggressive agriculture country, right? And what happens is the food that we eat now is not the same food that it used to be. So compared to one orange that our grandparents produced, in order to get the same amount of nutrients and minerals and vitamins, we need to eat about 8 oranges. When it comes to apples, from 1950 to now, we need to eat about 27 apples in order to get the same minerals and nutrition. Because what happens is as we're aggressively farming, the soil is getting depleted, so the food is having less nutrients in it, it's less nutrient dense. So here's what this means. The reality of the situation is, no matter how good you eat, no matter if you do everything right, you're still not getting this amount of nutrients that you need in order to heal and function at 100%. Listen, I used to be one of those people say, hey, supplements are not necessary. I hated supplements. I was one of those people that said I can get everything that I need from food alone. And it's the sad reality is that's not the case. And so supplementation becomes necessary. And we see this all the time in the metabolics program where the healthiest people who've been following the 5 essentials and eating the right things for years, they're still deficient in many of the categories. So again, when it comes to supplements, we need to know where it came from. So supplements can actually become a source of toxin in your life. So there was a point in my life where I used to take all the supplements in the world, taking protein, creatine, in order to get fit, quote unquote fit. And I realized that there are companies out there where I can buy whey protein from this company and creatine from this company and amino acids from this company, dump it all together into a tub, shake it up, I can put my label on it and sell it. There's little to no barrier in the supplement industry. It's not regulated well. So the things that are on the label might not be actually on the label. And if you do read the label, you'll see things like, and more, right? Or natural flavor. Like, what does that mean? Right? It's salt additives, there are often colors in it, and it's not screened for heavy metals. And I found this out where I actually I had like a wool socks on, and I was walking on carpet, and I went to go scoop a protein I do believe this was an undergrad, and I saw a bunch of particles sticking to me. And everywhere I moved, there was a bunch of particles moving in the protein tub, right? Those are things like heavy metals that were never taken out, right? So again, when it comes to supplements, this is not where, you know, if you can't invest into a high quality supplement, that you go get something just off the shelf. This is not something where little is better than nothing. If you can't invest into a good quality supplement, it's better not to take it at all. Because if you take a bad quality supplement, you're actually doing more harm to your body than good. You're actually creating more expensive waste than actually being used in the body. So what do you look in a supplement? Again, this is what you should be looking for. No artificial colors, no additives, no colors, or flavors. But this is difficult because, like I said, supplement industry is not regulated well, so we don't truly know what's inside unless you know where it is made. You know where it's sourced from. So in order to get a high quality supplement, again, do your research, but what you want to look for is getting closest to its natural form. What does that mean? It means don't get any synthetic supplement where it's made in a lab. Get supplements that's made from whole foods. And here's the reason why. The word that you need to know is bioavailability. Bioavailability. So that's just a fancy word for how easy is it for your body to break it down and actually use it. Okay? So if it's made from a lab and it's synthetic, your body's just gonna flush it out because it doesn't know how to use it. However, when supplements are actually made from whole foods, your body's able to use it into your body and not simply flush it out into your system. Making sense? So this is what I like about our supplements. We know exactly where it's from, we know how it is sourced, we know where it's made, and it is GMP certified, FDA registered, NSF certified. What does that mean? They regulated through everything, there's no toxic in it, whatever is in the bottle is in the bottle. It's 100% gluten free, it's 100% non-GMO. Again, the strength and purity is guaranteed. So these supplements were actually created because in Max Living, us chiropractors, we were tired of recommending supplements and we didn't truly know the quality of it. So these were specifically made for a purpose to make sure that our patients can have supplements and not have to worry about the toxicity that's involved. Is that making sense? So you guys will have an opportunity to buy some of these supplements. Now, I'm just gonna go through our detox system. It seems like it's a fad now to detox, right? So what I like about ours is very easy on the body and it's very simple. So it's actually 2 detox systems in one. One is a cellular detox that you take in the morning, just 1 pill in the morning, or actually 2 pills in the morning. And let's go back to high school chemistry or biology for a little while. So you remember every single cell has 2 fat layers. These things keep things out, and whatever's inside, it likes to keep things in. What happens is, whenever you're toxic, toxins actually accumulate and literally get engraved into your cells. So whenever you're doing things like your juice detox, it's not pulling those toxins out, it's just flushing out whatever's on the surface, okay? So our cellular detox actually pulls this engraved toxins out of the cells, getting ready for it to be thrown to waste. And at night, you take what we call a body detox. This is where you take 2 pills at night and it prepares everything to be eliminated. Now, the number one question that we get is, am I gonna be on the toilet, right? And the answer is no. So our detox system, who has done the detox system before? Some of us here, and you guys can be a testament to this. It's very easy in the body, it's not harsh, and once you get off this 30-day cycle, you feel very refreshed. You feel like, feeling good is one of those things, you don't know how good you can feel until you get there. Makes sense? So again, this is a part of the bundle that we're doing today, and this is a part of that bundle also, the metal bind. So the biggest question, one of the biggest questions that we get after we've been doing the metabolics program is this: how do we get rid of metals in our body? How does that happen? Now, there's a lot of metal binding supplements out there, and these are what we call chelators. Chelators are what grabs that metal and let it go to waste, right? But the problem is when it comes to low quality metal binders, the chelators actually bind to our essential minerals, okay? And it actually flushes that out, so you will see things like digestive issues, dehydration, headaches. What we like about ours is that this is a 5-step process where our chelators bind to bad metals alone and leave the good ones alone and let it go to waste. Also, it prevents metals from actually getting into your cells in the first place. And just like the cellular detox, it goes into the cells to grab the metals that are already in there and get it flushed out. So these are the 2 supplements that we have in our bundle. If you guys order today, we'll take 40% off the product. You have an opportunity to do that at the end of this.
Could you jump to exercise?
Yeah.
If you don't mind talking about that.
So we know that exercise is important to us, right? Is that truth or myth?
Facts.
Truth, right? So when you think of detoxing, what organs do you guys think of? Just you guys can speak to me.
The liver,
The liver, kidneys,
skin.
skin. Yeah, exactly. Skin is a huge part of detoxing, and so are your lungs. So whenever you're exercising, you're not necessarily exercising just to lose weight and move the needle on the scale, right? A big part of exercise and why we need to exercise on a regular basis is to detox. But because when you sweat, it's been shown that you specifically eliminate things like BPA, which is in plastic, and PCBs, which are polychlorinated biphenols, which are highly toxic industrial compounds. So studies after studies, what it showed that you don't really eliminate this through urine, you only eliminate it through sweat at a high dose. So again, we know that exercise is important to you, not just walking and hiking and doing the regular things, but what I recommend is every single one of you guys in these seats here have a bookmark that shows Max T3. Who has done Max T3 before? A small percentage of us. Again, the biggest excuse that we hear about not exercising regularly is what? Time. So hey, I don't have an hour to exercise every single day. I have work, I have kids, I have all these things in my life. But what Max T3 does is you don't need any equipment. You just need a little space in your home. You need a monitor, and you just need your body and willingness to move, right? And when it comes to time, there are exercises between 5 minutes to 20 minutes, so you can no longer use that excuse. Now, I promise that 5-minute workout is gonna be the best workout of your life. It'll have you breathing hard, okay? You're not only losing fat and boosting your metabolism, right? But you're burning fat, so there's less toxins in your body, and then you're sweating and breathing it out. So.
Yeah, let me just hit a couple of things before we get you guys out of here. So we mentioned a couple of times about the metabolic program, and so I just want to kind of talk about that. That's not for every single person, for sure, but really what the Max Metabolic program is all about is testing, not guessing. Because here's the problem. A lot of times, a lot of these different issues all have the same symptoms, whether it be toxicity issues, or leaky gut issues, or gluten sensitivity. A lot of the symptoms are very, very similar. And so what ends up happening is that you try different things, right? You're like, you go online and you Google this, you talk to a friend or a relative, and you're like, okay, well, stop eating this, drink this, take this out, and it's like hit and miss. And so I know we got frustrated because most patients did well if they did the advanced plan, got on the chiropractic care, because the body could heal at a higher level. But then more and more, we started to discover that there were people who were really struggling. I mean, we would have people that would do the advanced plan, and if you don't know what that is, and essentially what that is, it's just taking out all grains out of your diet for a short period of time. So you're eating all the clean meats that Dr. Choi just talked about, and then all the vegetables that you want to eat, and healthy fats. And so people would do that, people would do Max D3, but they were still struggling. And so what we've learned is that like some people are just so damaged on the inside and so many pathways were broken that it was a struggle even to get them back to baseline. And so this is usually in the realm of functional nutrition, right? So functional medicine doctors and nutritionists, they were doing this years ago, but it was very cost prohibitive for a lot of people and very cumbersome. And so Max Living uses one of the biggest labs in the country. And so we came up with this metabolics program. And so what it allows us to do is to really test at a high level what exactly is going on in people's bodies. So let's kind of jump back to it right here. So it really allows us to correct the problem before it becomes a disease. The problem is when you have medical testing, for the medical test to be positive, you already have the problem. You guys see where I'm going with that? That means you have enough cell and tissue and organ damage that is so extensive that it shows up on a medical test. But what about the level of the cell? What about the pathways? And so one of the things that metabolics does, it tests about 140 different metabolic pathways. So in other words, it's looking at enzymes. It's looking at, are you able to break your foods down properly? Are all these different energy systems working properly? It's going to look at vitamins and mineral deficiencies. Do you have any blood sugar imbalance? Do you have a lot of global inflammation? Do you have oxidative stress, which is going to damage the lining of the cell walls, and can lead to things like heart disease, cardiovascular disease, cancer? Do you have any toxicity in heavy metals like we just talked about? So you can do a special test for that. Gastrointestinal stress. Do you have yeast overgrowth? Do you have a proliferation of bad bacteria? We can test for that. Stress hormone imbalance, which is a big one. So people who aren't sleeping well. Is measuring cortisol levels. Are they too high? Is looking at your serotonin levels. Is looking at, if you can't sleep, do you have a melatonin problem? So as opposed to guessing about all these different things, we can test them. Fatty acid imbalance. If you've got a fatty acid imbalance, then your ability to reduce inflammation and fight inflammation is going to be compromised. Okay? If you've got your amino acid profile, are you breaking down proteins? A lot of people we found, you may eat the right proteins, eat enough of it, but your body doesn't break it down. And if your body isn't breaking down proteins, then the amino acids that you actually need to build healthy tissue in your body isn't there. So your body can't repair itself, right, without those amino acids. And then there's one that we don't typically do, but we may decide to add this, and that is a genetic risk profile or factor. And it really just tells us whether or not you have a genetic risk for something. Okay? It doesn't mean that, okay, we're going to get this, but it lets you know if you have a genetic risk for X, Y, and Z, then you're the person that you definitely have to be careful. Like you definitely may have to be stricter about certain foods that you eat or things that you avoid, right? You may not have the full genetic flexibilities of other people, okay? So if you're interested in that, let us know. I think we're doing a small discount tonight for that. So what's the, it's usually the testing.
$7.85.
The testing is usually $7.85.
Heavy metals. And tonight it'll be $7.42.
So small discount if you're interested, but I will tell you that the people that I've seen do it, phenomenal results. And you're more than welcome to talk to anyone who's done it. They'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. But just people who've struggled over the years, and we've seen people, reverse a lot of those symptoms that they were having, losing weight, and just doing great. So that's one thing that if you guys need help with that, let us know. Toxic negativity. I mean, we got to finish with this. We got to talk about this and the nervous system because we always talk about foods and we talk about cosmetics, but mindset is a big one. How many people understand what I'm talking about? Like a toxic mindset. You can do everything right and have a toxic mindset and ruin your health. And today it's so easy. We came off of 2 years and we're kind of still in it right now where we're filled with fear. And so when you have fear and faith cannot coexist. Can I get an amen from somebody, please? Amen. Right, turn this into church for the next couple of minutes. Right, so faith and fear cannot coexist. I'm sorry. So when you're walking around and you're fearful, you have no faith. And if you have no faith, right, now first of all, the first thing that happens is when you're walking around in fear and not faith, the more you walk around in fear, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As a man thinketh, so is he, the Bible says, right? Which is a very good book to read, by the way, by James Allen. It's an oldie but goodie. And at the end of the day, this is what happens when you walk around in fear. And by the way, don't lie to yourself and say, I'm just being cautious. No, you're being fearful. There's a difference, okay? And so when you walk around in fear, what happens is it changes your physiology. It absolutely does. Right? One of the first things that happens is your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and imagined. So if you keep telling your mind, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that, right? And it doesn't have to be a virus necessarily. It's in relationships. It's in people, right? When you start talking about, I don't want to talk to this person, or I'm fighting with that person, you're living in fear. And what you start to do, you start to bathe your cells in stress hormones, cortisol, right? And when you bathe your cells in stress hormones, right, your body starts to break down. And you put your body in what's called a catabolic state. So guess what happens, right? Not only stress hormones go up, but you have more inflammation in your body, right? You start having more digestive issues, okay? You're gonna have more tension. You're gonna have more sleepless nights. Your serotonin levels are gonna be really, really low. So your mood is gonna be off. Your melatonin level is gonna be low, so you're not gonna be able to sleep at night. If you can't sleep at night, you can't heal. If you can't heal properly and you start having inflammation, that leads to fibromyalgia. Okay? So now you got digestive issues, you can't sleep, you got pain all over the place. Okay? And if you're a woman who's trying to get pregnant, you can't get pregnant because now you're gonna have infertility because when the body is stressed out, your reproductive system doesn't work well. Right? Now you're gonna be at a higher risk for cancer and infection because when you're stressed out, your immune system doesn't work well. Why? Because the body says, we don't have to worry about an infection, right? We're worried about being killed. You see what happens? And by the way, when your body's bathed in stress and fear, guess what your body does? It craves sugars. So now you start going to the store and buying a lot of candy. Did we not see that over the last 2 years when people were at home, the shopping carts, right? Nobody here, of course, but right, it was full of junk food. So you just weaken your immune system. And it went on and on and on and on. And these are things that people needed to be educated on, right? On this is what happens when you live a fearful life. And so it's that stress that can kill us too. And that's very toxic. And I think it's time that we start to really look for positive things. And you get to control your mindset, And again, I don't know how spiritual you guys are or not spiritual, but I know that we're all a mind, body, and spirit. And you have to understand that because we tend to focus on the body. And I know this talks a lot about the body and this talks about the mind, but it's really beyond the mind. You are not your mind, okay? You're bigger than your mind. Your mind that's part of your soul, right? That's your mind, your willpower, right? Those are all, that's your emotions, that's part of your soul. But your spirit is much higher than that. And so know who you are. And if you're coming from that place, then you don't have to be at the whim of your thoughts. Like you don't have to think negative, right? Whatever that negative thought is, it doesn't have to encapsulate and consume you. You can literally distance yourself from that thought. I'm reading this book that I've read several times. It's called The Untethered Soul. And then there it talks about the fact, he said, I'll prove to you that you're not your mind. Because, stop, like, if you have a thought, or you're not your thoughts, right? If you have a thought in your head, and you guys ever meditated before? And you meditate, and even for a short period of time, you don't have a thought, but you still exist, right? So you can control your thoughts. So that's where it starts. And so that really leads me into what's the practicality of this. The practicality of this is that we spend time on our body, we eat and we exercise, right? And we spend time in our bodies in terms of makeup and everything else. How much time do we spend on our mind and our spirit? How much time do you spend, I think in the morning is a good time, in prayer and meditation, right? And hopefully, talking to God if you believe in God. But even if you don't believe in God, right? How much time do you spend on your emotional health, right? What books do you read? What do you eliminate? Are you on social media all the time? Right? Are you on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram? Are you constantly reading that stuff? Are you watching the news all the time? Please, God, don't do that. Right? So what are you reading? Pick up the Bible if that's your thing. Right? Read Proverbs. Right? Just a wisdom of information in Proverbs. Right? Read that. Are you going to church on Sunday? Right? Or if you're a Muslim, you go into the mosque. Right? I'm inclusive. I'm including everybody here. Right? Are you reading good books? So take some of that money and invest in Audible. Audible? Right? You get a book every month. Right? While you're driving back and forth, put something positive in your mind. There's so many great books. I wrote down a short list of some of the books that I love. Untethered Soul is a good one. There's a great one I love by Joyce Myers, The Mind Connection. You guys know Joyce Myers. Okay, another good book is Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Do you know who Viktor Frankl is? Viktor Frankl was a man that was in a concentration camp, and he made it out. He went to 3 different concentration camps, and it talked about how is it that he survived these concentration camps. And he found that the people who were realistic about their situation, but had something that they dreamt about, and focus on and went beyond themselves, they're the ones that survived. So you think you got it bad, read that book. I read half the book, I had to pause. You know? Yeah, so there's a lot of great books out there. As I mentioned, one of my favorite books that we've been into recently is Essentialism. Some of you are just too busy. Can I be honest with you? I love the people that say, I can't come to my appointment because I got to do X, Y, and Z. And my question is, how many of those things are moving you towards your goal? How many of those things are moving you towards the things that you say you want? Right? So at the end of the day, Essentialism, I love the book, is written by this CEO, and he's very successful. And he said, I got to a point where his health broke down because he was doing everything. And so there are things in our lives that are non-essential. And sometimes you just have to learn to say no for your peace of mind. So if you're stressed out because you're doing too much, it's time to say no. And they'll be okay. And will you upset and piss some people off?
Yep.
Yes, you will. It's okay. You absolutely will. But your peace of mind is most important. So there's this thing called a war plan that we do in Max Living. And what does that mean? The war plan says this. It says the things that are most important to you, you put those on your calendar. We've talked about that before. So if you say that spending time with God is important to you, it better be on your calendar. How much time do you spend with Him in the morning? If your spouse or your kids are important to you, how much time do you carve out to spend with them? Right? If exercise is important to you, how much time do you carve out for that? If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't happen. Right? You say eating well, finances, whatever it might be, it's got to be on there. And if you start living your life intentionally and start looking for reasons to love, can I read something to you real quick that I read to the team? I got from my church yesterday about love. Can you just pass my phone? Is it okay if I do this? I know we're going a little longer. I get a little passionate about this, right, as you can tell. But because you know why? It touches my soul. I do this so I can grow. And so if something touches my soul, I assume it's going to touch yours. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm the only one with problems, right? But God is still working on me. I'm still growing, right? But, it's just, I read this. My pastor put this up, and it came from a book it's called, turn. Wait, it did earlier. All right, here we go. Good. Jerry Cook, and it's called Love, Acceptance, and Forgiveness. You guys ever heard that book? It's a good book to get, and here we go. And I'm going to read it to you guys. It says, listen to these words, and imagine if you walk through life like this. Brother, sister, I want you to know that I'm committed to you. You'll never knowingly suffer at my hands. I'll never say or do anything knowingly to hurt you. If you're down and I can lift you up, I'll do that. Anything I have that you need, I'll share with you. And if need be, I'll give it to you. I love this next part, right? Here, this is what we need, this part right here. This is the source of the stretch for a lot of people. No matter what I find out about you, and no matter what happens in the future, good or bad, my commitment to you will never change. And there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have to respond. I love you, and that's what it means. So for a lot of people, it's like we do too many things, but for a lot of us, we're stressed out because of what we think other people think about us. We're stressed out because of what we think about other people and how we judge other people. And that line says, I love it. No matter what I find out about you, and no matter what happens in the future, good or bad, my commitment to you will never change. So it's easy for us to see that, on the one side of it, but what about the other side? Right? Like, who are you upset with or stressed out about or upset about or whatever, had a fight with, that you need to have that attitude towards? And at the same time, you need that person to have that attitude towards you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know those of you who just started as patients, you're like, what on earth did we walk into? Is this chiropractic? No, it's called vitalism. It's called holism, mind, body, and spirit. That's the culture that you walked into in this place. That's what we do. We're bold about it. I am perfectly okay with someone walking out of this office and not becoming a patient because they don't like what I just said. I will open the door for you. Because at the end of the day, we don't work for you. Who do we work for? We work for God.
Amen.
Right? So He's a supplier. So I am never worried about someone walking out on me, ever. Because He's the one that supplies. He's the one that brought you in here. right? You might have met us out and whatever, or you might have seen a Facebook or ad or whatever, but at the end of the day, because we're responsible to give you truth. This is truth. Everything we talked about is truth. We stand by it, and we're bold about it. I'll debate anybody about this, right? We had one lady the other day. I'm off on a tangent, but I promise these guys want to go home. You guys want to go home, all right? We'll talk two seconds about the nervous system, and we're done. So there was two different stories. One lady, she came in for she was gonna work here, right? She lasted 3 days, and it's interesting. Was it 3 days?
It was a week.
What?
A week.
It felt like 3 days. Okay, a week. And so, she was supposed to be here. Long story short, she didn't show up. Emily calls her, and Emily, what did she say?
She didn't answer me. She texted me.
Okay, what did she say?
That she just does she just doesn't believe what we do or something.
She's
like
not
that.
holistic.
Oh yeah, she's not holistic.
She's not holistic. This is a woman at 50 years old, by the way, right? She's already had a stroke. And the reason why she came in late to work that day is because she had to go see her cardiologist, right? But she's not into holistic stuff, right? Then I had another patient who, a reactivation, and she was a patient here years ago, and the reason why she quit is because her kids don't believe in this stuff. They believe in medications. Listen, I get it. There's a place for medications. Don't get me wrong, right? Medicine saves lives. Right? You're in a critical situation, right? Don't come here. Go to the hospital and let it save your life. But it can't create health. So when someone tells me, I don't believe in what you guys are talking about, what on earth are you talking about? You mean to tell you have more faith in a spoonful of medicine or a pill than you have in the power that created you? Are you kidding me? So that's what we stand for. So that's what we talk about this boldly, because we love you guys and we want more for you than we want for ourselves, because this is a lifestyle that we live. That's why, by the way, can I be so bold? Every single person you know who's not in this office, you should be telling about this office. Who's ever seen a movie before that they liked? Raise your hand. Everybody did. Raise your hand, right? How many people did you tell somebody about it?
Yeah.
You told somebody about it, right? Who's been to a restaurant that you liked? Yeah? Did you tell somebody about it?
Yes.
Did it change their life? No. It didn't change their life. You got entertainment for a minute, but it didn't change their life. This changes lives. Tell people about this place. I am bold about it. Refer your friends. We should have to knock down these frigging walls, right? You know what I want? I had this dream to have like a big public shopping center. My first practice was in Paulding County, and I always had a dream that whole shopping center, that we would like put Publix out of business. Well, not out of business because they serve good jobs, but move somewhere else, and have the whole complex be like a 5 essential Max Living complex with multiple Max Living doctors, right? Seeing thousands of people. If thousands of people are living this lifestyle, I promise you we don't have the same rate of depression, right? I was going to say,
You
ask a
put the
question.
pharmaceutical industry out of business.
Was that?
You put the pharmacy industry out of business.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. Only for crisis care, right? I get there's a need, but how cool would that be? I guarantee you depression would go down. I guarantee you. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, you name them, they would go down. It's impossible for them not to go down, right?
Would be the new blue zone.
That's another thing I want to do. I talked about that. But not a blue zone. I want to have a max living zone. So here's my dream, to have so many people within a 5 to 10 mile radius, right? Henrietta being so healthy, living the 5%, right? And so they noticed that the hospital, like Kennestone and the medical doctors, have reported that there's a decrease in people coming in. And then the CVS and the Walgreens, they're selling less medications, there are fewer prescriptions. And so they spent 60 minutes to do a piece to figure out why is it that in this area in Kennesaw, in a 10-mile radius, why is it that not a lot of people, like what's going on? And then they go around and they interview these people and they go, well, we actually do the 5 essentials. And they go, what the heck is that? Right? And it's Max Living offices in the area. That's what it's possible.
Yes, it is.
It's this.
Mindset.
Are you bold enough? Are you bold enough? You bold enough? Say, all right, yeah, okay, say no, that's it. You guys get that. Journal, write stuff down. Who's journaled before? Journaling is one of the most powerful things to do. Hey, pay attention for a second. Most powerful things you can do. If there are things that stress you out, try this. Write it down. Write it down. And this is what I want you to do. Don't filter it. Just write and write and write and write. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll write some things that are dark, that you don't want to admit. But as you write them down, okay, and you get it out, there's something cathartic about it. There's something that's freeing about it. All right, try it. Journal it. Okay? It works. I promise you, it works. Detox your mind. Exercise, we talked about that. And listen, health equals function. If you don't have a healthy nervous system, none of this matters. Right? Because watch this. If I cut the nerves going to your heart, good luck doing burpees. If I cut the nerves to your stomach, good luck with the supplements. Right? So all of you, almost all of you are on the chiropractic here, because I'm preaching to the choir. I don't know you, but you're going to sign up to get checked. That's how serious I am about it. He was out this weekend in the sleet on Saturday, right? Watch this. This is commitment, okay? And then I'm done. I promise. I'm done. I promise. Here's commitment. No, here's commitment. This guy just graduated school last October. He loves what he does. I've been around several doctors. I've been in practice for over 20 years. I've had several associates at West Cobb. You guys were there. I've seen young doctors come in. They come in, they want everything, they bring nothing to the table. I don't care that you got a degree, so what? That's 4 years of money and studying. A lot of people can do that. I had one guy was a student, he wasn't even graduated yet, and he got upset because the staff would call him by his first name. I said to him, when you you start having bills with your name on it in your practice, then you can insist on being called doctor. The attitude is incredible to me, right? They don't want to serve. They want to come out, get a title, and make a ton of money. I was told that in the Orient, in ancient times, you were paid if you were a doctor and people were well.
That's right.
If you kept people well, you got paid. So this guy, Kennesaw, Taste of Kennesaw, right?
Big Shanty, yeah.
Big Shanty, whatever, right? Downtown Kennesaw. We tried to go there and set up a booth, screen, right? Right. And so we were going to pay the money, and they wouldn't let us because they had another chiropractor there, and that chiropractor had exclusivity. You know how many hundreds of people go through there? Right? Fine. So he says, why don't I go by Paisanos, right? And see if I can set up a booth in their parking lot. Right? Oh, I can't do that. I'm a doctor. Right? So he goes out there. It's sleet. He's got a student with him holding the tarp.
Yeah.
Right? You described this to me.
Yeah, I'm
As
surprised that's not broken right now.
as he's screening people, okay? And he's texting me, right? And then he said, man, it's cold. I'm not sure this is working. But he went back. He finished that day, him and the student. He goes back on Sunday. And how many people did you meet?
13.
13 people are coming into the office because they met him and they said, you know what? I have a problem. I've been praying for an answer. Thank God you're out here.
Amen.
He wasn't even on part of the whole festival. He found a way. And if he wasn't there, there's 13 more people that would have been on medications. 13 more people that would have been suffering. 13 more people that would have died. That's why I'm bold enough to say, ma'am, you're going to get checked. Because it's going to save your life. Thank you. Good night.